I've been working on this video for like 2 months, and throughout the passage of time, I've written at least 4 drafts for this script, which is quite overwhelming, to be honest. I probably have a movie's length worth of recording. This intro is recorded just a few days before the release of this video, while the rest of the lines beyond this intro were recorded more than a month ago. Admittedly, my attempts at trying to voice the showman personality did not live up to my expectations, if you know what I mean. Looking at the script now, there are a lot of things that I wish I rephrased differently. So that's why future me is warning you of my futile attempts at trying too hard to sound humorous. So anyway, yes, I had this very strange dream.mp4 in December of 2023, and yes, it is a very real dream. I'm compelled to talk about it, not only to flex my interests, but also because I came up with some pretty interesting visuals that this dream inspired me to create. This is not just any story time. This is a dream. It is practically a movie of its own. A 2000s fever dream one. Like one of those commercials that Cartoon Network used to make. I'm sorry that the art is pretty shitty at the beginning, but trust me, the art throughout this video progressively gets better. If you think that the script and story sucks, you can at least stick around to see some pretty cool art, and vice versa, I guess. So, the first scene. It was a cloudy, rainy, and stormy day. My friends and I were wearing raincoats, and we ran towards a dusty, blank, hollow, and empty house. Lots of adjectives. The floors were made of concrete, and the walls were a dirty shade of white, covered in dust and hair. From the entrance, there was another room ahead, which also connected with a larger room. The brightest light source came from the front door, as many of the lights in each room were quite dim, making the rooms almost dark and colorless. We walked further into the small room, with the smell of wet dogs lingering in the air. So we walked further down the hall, and just in the second room, we found groups of small puppies in the middle of the room. There was lots of dog food, there was lots of stains, lots of dogs were whining and the conditions seemed poor, but nonetheless, they seemed satisfied just eating the food that was there. Moments later, we heard footsteps coming our way, followed by the sound of angry dogs. From the large empty room beside us, security guards emerged. A German Shepherd angrily ran toward me and aggressively bit my hand. My friends were also injured by the attacks, and all of us were bleeding and nauseated. I saw my group of friends get taken away by a group of people as I felt woozy and lost sight of the rest of the event. So this is kind of where it gets exciting now. And guess what? I woke up in the amazing digital circus! Oh my gosh, neighbors came by, so I'm kind of scared. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't exactly the amazing digital circus. I mean, like, there were characters from the amazing digital circus there. There was Jax, Gingle, and Zooble right there in front of me. However, the background wasn't exactly like it was in the show. It was more like a children's jungle gym, because there was trampolines, building blocks, gym mats, slides, and places to climb. kind of like the superstar daycare in FNAF Security Breach. I don't really remember the dialogue, but I still remember the behavior of the characters being a bit off. Basically, Jax and Gangle were behaving contrary to how they usually are. Jax greeted me quite amiably, but at the same time, he seemed frightened or something. While on the other hand, Gangle was more moody and sour and started spouting some street language. Jax and Gangle began to argue, but what seemed stranger to me was that Zooble spoke in a language that I just could not comprehend. I had no idea what they were saying, but to me, it's like they were having some sort of panic attack. Like, they were calling for help in a very aggressive way. Zooble's head spun frantically, their pupils changing size, and then their head literally decapitated from their body. And then all I could see was red, as white particles emitted in the air, and everything blackened. Okay, so before I move on to the next scene, I feel like I should provide some context about this new character, who I guess is the protagonist. I saw everything in first person, so I only had very few glimpses of this character in third person, but I would say that this character kind of looks like Courtney from Total Drama Island. But this version of Courtney is quite depressed, to say the least. Like, BoJack Horseman depressed. So, for the second scene, I got the vibe that the scene takes place sometime during the 1980s. Courtney was around 20-something years old, walking with a group of friends to some food trucks that offered various delicacies. One truck offered ice cream and the other only offered french fries. Then, Courtney went up to the ice cream food truck, where she talked to Steve Harrington from Stranger Things. Steve offered Courtney some free ice cream, but she refused it. Instead, she said something like, "Shut up, I'ma drink this beer instead." And then she walked off with her friends to a table, just holding a bottle of beer. So they ate their food. Nothing interesting there. So then Courtney's friends got up to leave, and all of them left and just left Courtney sitting alone at the table as she was, going through some stuff. She was about to leave too, until she was approached by a lady with purple skin, a triangle head, and purple clothing. That's right, it was Gooseworks. Gooseworks sat down at the table in front of Courtney, and there was a man who sat next to her who looked like Rohan Kashibe from Diamond is Unbreakable. From what I felt in the dream, both of the characters were colleagues or had some sort of business relationship. Definitely not romantic. Gooseworks asked Courtney a question. I forgot what the question was, but I remember that Courtney firmly declined. Whatever the question was about, Courtney clearly wanted nothing to do with whatever the situation was. Even after Courtney tried to escape the conversation, Gooseworks still insisted Courtney to come to her house. This is the part of the dream where things got really fuzzy, but I remember there was a brief moment where I was sitting in a passenger seat of a car with Rohan and Gooseworks at the front seats. I'm not sure if Courtney just passed out from drunkenness or if she was drugged or what. I don't know. Probably both. So then, I found myself in an extremely dark and gloomy room, where the only light source emitted from a small lamp. On the table, there was a map of the United States, where Gooseworks pointed toward. Goosework started talking about conspiracy theories and directly stated how Courtney was some sort of enthusiast upon the topic. Gooseworks mentioned something about some sort of secret society that resided in some place in the top left corner of the US state of Montana, and said something like, "Hey, do the thing that you know how to do." And Courtney drearily responded, "Okay." All of a sudden, a television flipped onto a static channel as Courtney sat down and put a blindfold over her eyes. Basically, she did the thing that Eleven does in Stranger Things, using telepathic abilities and shit. So, what happened from here? What did I see in the vision? Well, I can't tell you much because I don't want this video to get taken down, but in the most simplest way I can put it, there was like this cannibalistic cult that performed some violations against human rights. Quite disturbing stuff. That's all I'll say about that scene before anyone gets uncomfortable. Suddenly, I saw myself falling from the sky. I broke through a treehouse, a bridge, fell down some trees, and felt my body shrinking. I finally crashed into a house where I felt myself floating only a few inches above the ground, next to a very dark corner of a room. I then knew that I was a bee. I looked to my right, where there was an elderly bee laying next to a windowsill. My friend and I immediately went over to this bee, who felt like some sort of family member, someone like a grandmother or something. She looked at us and said weakly, "It's my time." My friend and I each grabbed one of her 6 hands as the elderly bee slowly began to fade. The elderly bee looked at me directly into my big eyes and said this single word, "Pomni." And then she immediately dematerialized into a cloud of glittery gold dust. Shortly after she was gone, my friend and I felt intense emotions, and we found ourselves arguing. I don't remember what exactly we argued about, but I remember it was something about some sort of unresolved situation in the past. We ended up making amends anyway and hugged each other. After that conversation was over, my bee friend said something like, "Let's venture into this world together. Let's start a new life and explore." From the entrance of the house, the front door swung open, shining light to the dark corner of the room, where crowds of bugs immediately flew for takeoff. This cluster of bugs flew straight to the light of the doorway as many critters happily escaped to the house. My bee friend flew straight in front of me as we continued to converse. Right in front of us, Rohan came walking through the doorway, holding a bag of groceries, and he looked at my friend with an intimidating face. My bee friend flew closer to him, and then Rohan opened his big freaking mouth and ate my friend and chewed them to bits. Then he looked at me and reached out his hand as everything went dark. With a smooth faded transition to the next scene, Courtney stood in front of Gooseworks and Rohan, who were sitting on a couch. Directly to the right, there was a person who seemed unconscious and had foam coming out of their mouth. Gooseworks simply just told Courtney, "Oh, don't worry, he's just sleeping." Courtney was a bit freaked out, but she simply just elaborated on whatever previous events occurred throughout the dream. Like the cult shit and the life of that one bee, I guess. After Courtney was done talking, she went to the bathroom and washed her hands. She thanked Gooseworks and turned to walk out the door of the house. All of a sudden, Courtney began to levitate off the ground, coughing and suffocating, attempting to pull away against some intense, strong force. Gooseworks intimidatingly walked toward Courtney and said something like, "It's too risky for you to leave. You know too much." So then I woke up in the digital world, the one that I had seen from the beginning of the dream. But this time it took place outside, as I stood on some sort of grassland next to some colorful buildings. Kane floated next to the doorway of some hotel, talking to a character who was sobbing. I saw some other various avatars next to me, who stared depressingly into the bright blue sky. They said nothing at all, but I felt the pain of their souls crying for help as the scene zoomed away. Then I woke up and immediately wrote down everything that I remembered from this very dream. So that's it. A story where Gooseworks and Rohan do illegal stuff and Courtney is a conspiracy theorist or something. 100 out of 10 story, obviously. So this is the part of the video where I try to analyze the dream and pull a MatPat, right? Ha! No. Please don't take anything from this video seriously. Originally, I was going to analyze it, and I even had this whole-ass philosophical speech planned, but then I thought, what's the point? Why take any dream so seriously? Well, according to what many say, dreams are meant to say something about the person's subconscious. Well, if that's the case, I'm not so sure what this dream says about me. I took up a lot of time and energy trying to analyze it, way more than I should, and after taking up a lot of brain power, things just got greatly unamusing and depressing. So you know what? Take the message of this dream, this video or whatever, to your own discretion. The script has changed so much that I don't even know what the message is anymore. Anyway, I don't really know what else to say in this video, so I'm just ending it here. If it helps in any way, you are free to comment down any weird dreams that you remember. Also, here's your reminder to drink plenty of water, and of course, have an amazing day/night, wherever you are right now. Okay, bye.